more. We can kiss you like that. Go for some more. Get it like that. Go for some more. We should. Go for some more. Go for some more. You rub it like that. Go for some more. How you like that. Go for some more.
What I'm saying is that girl, I got a future.
97.5 Kemet FM. Now it's time to talk about the Nottingham Roosevelt Memorial Travelling Scholarship. It's a Nottingham-based charity. It was established back in 1946 by the then Lord Mayor of Nottingham, one Francis Carney, and US President Eisenhower, in honour of the late President Franklin Delano Roosevelt for the contribution he made to ending World War II. Now, many cities, they built statues, but Nottingham, we've got to be different. We chose to have this living memorial, and to tell us more about it, on the line is one Julia Weaver Reid. Good morning, Julia.
Good morning, Christine.
Good morning. Now, when I phoned you, I was holding the phone and I was singing. I don't know what. You didn't hear me singing, did you?
I didn't, but I'm sure it would have been a beautiful sound.
Oh, Julia, that's the right answer. So you were a recipient of the Nottingham Roosevelt Memorial Travelling Scholarship. Tell me more about it.
Yes, I was a recipient in 1996, many moons ago, and as you said in your introduction, it was set up by Councillor Francis Carney at the time in 1945, and I was the first black scholar to receive this particular award, and I travelled to and around America for just over 4 months that year in order to promote and to represent Nottingham as a scholar, as an ambassador. It's an amazing scholarship, and it really has benefited me quite a lot since then. Do you want me to tell you a bit about the scholarship itself, what it's...
We'll get to that in just a moment. So, did you plan? Do you plan your own travel, or do they say you've got to go here, there, and everywhere, or
No.
do you say I'm going to America and this is what I plan to do?
No, you plan your own project, so it's usually for the employer that you're working for at the time. At the time I was working for Nottingham City Council, Economic Development Officer. But they do support you financially, obviously, and also support you while you're there in terms of, if there are any issues, any problems, any highlights, you report back in whatever method of communication you do, but you do choose your own subject.
Okay. So where did you visit then? Where did you go?
Oh wow! I went all over. I went to Ohio, Michigan, Texas, Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, California, North Carolina, Atlanta, Georgia.
Wow!
Time in Atlanta, Washington D.C., Baltimore, Nashville, Birmingham, Alabama. And spent some time, about a long weekend at Ithaca's New York's Cornell University, where we looked at commerce and business there, and made a lot of contacts in New Jersey, Chicago, and New York City.
Yeah.
So it was very extensive. So we planned our own trip. I planned my own trip around those.
Did you travel on your own, or did you go with somebody else?
I went on my own, but that same year there was another scholar who also went. She was Mary Treese from the Weavers Wine Merchants. No relation. I don't know if you've heard of Weavers Wine Merchants, but she travelled that year as well. So it's 2 people a year who are chosen to go, and every year the award is celebrated by returning scholars. And so, so that's the scholars have to be aged between 21 and 35 years old, and really immerse themselves in American society, industry, and culture. So I spoke at universities like Clark Atlanta University in Georgia, for example, and Rotary clubs and schools and media, local media, and really put Nottingham on the map. Because the idea really was, upon our return, is to it has to benefit Nottingham in some way, and it really did. And this year we're celebrating. Actually, it's tomorrow. we're celebrating the returnee scholars from 2022 and 2023. Yes, it's quite an exciting scholarship.
Yeah.
Amazing. And can I just say something, Christine? Because I think the link to Franklin Roosevelt in regards to African American society was really important. It was a time when there was a lot of political, economic and cultural changes by the Depression and the New Deal. And so somebody asked me the other day, well, how would it, who was he? What was he about? What was his relationship to African Americans at the time? At the time, there was a lot of migration from the south to the north, to the urban north, which began in 1910. And a lot of African Americans, obviously it was during the awful time for civil rights and for race relations with black people being in segregation and so on. But he was very instrumental in the New Deal and also Public Works Administration at the time, throughout the 1930s. And a lot of African Americans, largely because of the leadership of Roosevelt, were appointed in special agencies and were allies in the administration. And in fact, the First Lady herself, Eleanor Roosevelt, included people like Mary McLeod Bethune, who found themselves in leadership positions. And there was even a talk of a black cabinet of President Roosevelt advisors. And I could go on, but I know in the interest of time it isn't there. But one thing he was really instrumental in was he was largely against lynching and the poll tax and so on. And he tried to make an anti-lynching bill a priority, but there was so much opposition from the Republicans, and so they went against a lot of race-related issues. I spent some time with his grandson in Manhattan, Haven Roosevelt. Spent some time in Manhattan in his offices with him, and it was a really amazing time. I met other members of his family as well. So yes, it's an excellent.
It sounds really exciting. A great opportunity, and some of the places that you've mentioned, because I know you're talking about business and commerce, but you're mentioning going to cities where there's quite a large black population: Atlanta, Georgia, Baltimore, and then going to Cornell, which is an Ivy League university. So I think, would it not also give you a perspective of Black America and of revolution that we've heard about from our parents and we've seen on the news and we've read, but to actually be there? Do you know what I mean? I mean, that must be exciting.
It was very exciting, Christine. And in fact, in 1996, when I went, it was the Olympics around that time. But Atlanta, Georgia, in particular, became a focus of a place which I've visited many times since. For example, since then, and it was exciting because we looked at. I spent a lot of time with business delegations like the Minority Enterprise Development, the NAACP, the National Association of Coloured Peoples, the Martin Luther King Center. I met Coretta Scott King and Dexter King, and was able to engage with them. But there was so much. Atlanta, in particular, is so progressive, and there was a lot of initiatives and strategies that other states in America looked towards Atlanta as a good practice state. And there was a lot of effective federal and state measures to tackle urban economic decline. And, the exploration of the link between social cohesion and economic development and social development was really powerful. Baltimore as well was amazing. As you mentioned, and also, I mean, there were some states where you could still see they needed a lot of catching up to, like Birmingham, Alabama. I spent some time there.
It's just when you say, you say Birmingham, Alabama. I mean, that's Martin Luther King. That's revolution, isn't it?
Wow, it's revolution. And funny enough, as a child, I was very influenced by my parents, who had a great interest in civil rights. And I remember now, this is showing my age a little bit, but before the advent of Betamax videos, we used to watch the projectors of the civil rights movement on the projector as a child, and it really stuck in my head. And I remember as a child in a school which was predominantly white, playing Rosa Parks in a play. And I mean, since then, me and my husband, Nigel, we travel a lot to America and visit Atlanta and Baltimore and all these other places where I made strong cultural links. And it never gets old for me, because although I'm not African American, I am of African heritage, and so the diaspora and all that means was very relevant to me. Walking across the Petmus Bridge, where there were so many riots and people, sharing their experiences. We spoke to old people who were young at the time during the 50s and 60s, who spoke about not being able to drink from the same fountain, water fountain, and it was interesting because actually speaking to them who experienced it was amazing.
Yeah, it's completely different to reading a book, isn't it? Completely different.
It is, yeah.
Lovely. So you see, now you're taking me off now. I'm thinking, ooh, this is a great opportunity. So what would you say to people then who are listening to you and listening to your experience, and they're thinking, shall I apply? Shall I not apply? How do they apply? How do they get to it?
Right. If they go onto the Notting Roosevelt Memorial Travel Scholarship website, there is a link there on how to apply. And I would say, apply. You are between the age of 21 and 35. The benefits Christine gained was absolutely out of this world. I mean, since then which motivated me, I then went to, for example, these are examples of how it can benefit you. Because I'd formed so many links in Washington, for example, and across America, I was invited to, BBC Radio Nottingham actually asked me to go to President Obama's inauguration and to cover it and to report back. And
Get out of here!
Yes, I was there.
Out of here!
And the inauguration was absolutely amazing. And I went to the massive church inauguration where people like Jesse Jackson, what's the other gentleman? He does a lot of, his name's gone for now. He does a lot of protesting against police brutality with George Floyd. I can't remember his name.
I know who you mean. I know who you mean.
You know who I mean, don't you?
Yeah, it will come. It will come.
It will come. And was able to talk to them, and really listen to their experiences. But being physically there at the inauguration was just life changing for me. And I want to say to people who are listening, to go for it. It doesn't matter, your background, your anything about you. You have a chance to go. As I said, I remember when I applied, and I remember going for the interview at the council house in town, and 25 people sitting in front of me, including the Lord Mayor at the time, and feeling a little bit out of depth, thinking I'm never going to get it. So when I was chosen to go as ambassador, it really, really blew my mind. And my mother, she passed away last year, and I remember her being really proud and phoning me, my parents phoning me every minute to find out if I was okay, especially when I went to the Deep South.
I'm sure.
And, but it was amazing. I have to say, apply. It's one of those experiences that, I mean, on Friday we've got returning scholars who are going to be talking about their experiences and the impact on their lives. It's not just about those 4 months you'll be away. You just need to be criteria. You need to live or work in Nottinghamshire and in employment. There, you choose your own project, as I said. Spend 6 weeks in the States visiting people and places that you choose in order to best research your project.
Lovely.
And you get a scholarship money as well, obviously, to a return flight. And it's just amazing. It really is. And I have to say, the scholarship supports supports you very well. Russell Blenkinsop, is the secretary. He's amazing. You know, he's really...
So you felt really supported throughout the whole time?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
The whole time.
Good.
The lady who supported me, actually, she's passed away now. Her name is Sandy Fisher. She was one of the early trustees, and they won't leave you alone to know what's going to happen next. It's very... It's amazing. And you come back and, you know, it impacts Nottingham as well. Yeah. And so I formed a lot of... while I was there, I actually created a network of people, practical links with America.
Well, that's really good, particularly when you're listening to the news, because, you know, as we know, a lot of what we hear on the news is not true. So I'd imagine that you've got links there that you could ring up and say, you know, can you give me the real information on this?
Exactly, and like you said, the word there is real. The real situation, what's going on. So, and I've always had a passion for America. I was an exchange student at the University of Buffalo before I did the scholarship in 1989 and worked there. And so I went back to those same links that I had then. Yeah. And so, but the scholarship really, really emphasised how important international links are. And how to observe and heighten cultural awareness across the world, regardless of ethnicity or gender or age. We can make a difference in those international links. So I'd encourage everyone to get on the website and to go for it. And you look back and say, you know what? I did the right thing.
Yeah, the right
really
thing.
Amazing experience.
So that's the Roosevelt.scholarship.org. If they go onto that, they will find out more.
They'll find out more.
Was it the Reverend Al Sharpton?
Sharpton,
that's it. I knew who you meant.
Yeah, and I could see his face. I was thinking, what's his name again? Reverend Al Sharpton. Yes, it was great seeing the love and the humour between him and Jesse Jackson, who was sitting right behind us at the inauguration. But thinking about what they have experienced in their lives.
They've got a tale to tell, those two, haven't they?
Oh my goodness!
Wow,
what a tale or two, really. Yeah. And they were very welcoming, and yes, it was just. So I have so many photographs and videos of my time.
Have you done an exhibition on this? Have you done an exhibition? Have you done an exhibition on your experience?
I have actually. I did a presentation when I came back to the local councillors and the city council, but also as well at Rotary clubs, because a lot of Rotary clubs were big at the time in America, and but I've got lots of photographs. I was, unfortunately, I think this was pre-real internet. Time when I went in 1996, but I did have lots of photographs. But a lot of the recent scholars have got videos and so on. I mean, I took lots of pictures, for example, in Stone Mountain in Georgia, which was has a history all of its own, which is interesting. But I'm very fortunate that my husband and I have the same travel and love for America, because I've continued doing that. Yeah. With him, travelling around and continuing not just on a, not just about business, but also on a very personal level. People that I'd met over the years, and I love older people, Christine. I've got this passion for older people, people who were there at the time, who experienced segregation, who were there on the peace protests. I met this woman in a church who, she would be 100 now if she's still alive, and she spoke about how many times she was arrested for daring to sit at the front of the bus, and influenced by people like Rosa Parks and others as well.
Good protest. Good protest, they say.
That's right, good protest, and if it wasn't for them, they'd still be riding at the back of the bus. You know, they took us
Exactly.
Can you imagine?
Exactly. And we need those memories. We need those real memories to be recorded, because as we know, history is told by the victor, and well, so they say. I don't know the definition of victor. You know, and sometimes the real truth gets, well, oftentimes the real truth gets lost along the way.
Exactly, and it's so important for those voices to still be heard. So when we talk about, you know, history, it's not just black history, it is history, period.
That's
you know,
right.
and it's so important to know that, and not segregating black history from history, because black history is history. You know, when we look at what's happening with the, you know, I don't want to go into it too much because I'm sure I've never said yet. When we think about the Windrush generation and all that they've been through, and they can relate to those indignities that were set on them, and so it's important for young people.
Those indignities that were set on them from 1948 to 2023. It never stops.
Exactly. 2023.
Yeah.
And those stories, those voices are so important. I know you've done a lot of work yourself in highlighting issues like this, and it's never stopped. And so the voices of young people, hopefully when I'm long gone, will be able to talk about history as it was and as it is, and hopefully at that time how things would have changed somewhat as well. It's so important and vital, and so, you know, and that's why I think it's so important to open our emotional and physical borders from just being in England, but to look outside the world, even outside of America. You know, there's my husband, we like to watch, I don't know if you've heard of Ace Live, and he's got a YouTube page. He's an influencer, excellent. He goes around the world.
Who's that? His
name's Ace, A-C-E, Ace Live.
Okay.
He's fantastic, and he's a black American guy of Haitian background.
Oh, Haitian. Don't get me started. Julia, you've come on here and you've taken me on a journey. Don't get me started on Haiti.
Exactly. Well, you would love it, Christine. He's a YouTuber.
Ace Live.
Ace Live.
Okay.
And he goes to places like Colombia, Cuba. We went to Cuba as well and saw a lot of what he talked about. But he looked at Colombia.
Yes.
What else?
Lovely.
And he takes you to places where you didn't even realise black people lived, and they have communities, really strong communities in South America and places like Australia, Mexico. Absolutely fascinating. I'm addicted to this guy's insight. I love history anyway. But
Julia,
there's a big world out there.
Julia Weaver Reid, I've got to go.
I could talk to you all day.
You're taking me on a travel. You have. What a travel we've had. So, thank you so much for coming on the show and telling us. I think what you've communicated is just the wealth and the value of that experience. So hopefully we're going to get people to apply. I will give them the information. Julia Weaver Reid, thanks so much for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you, Christy.
Bye-bye now.
Thank you so much for having me. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Kemet FM.